Richard yearned for a child. He dreamed of tiny hands clutching his finger, of bedtime stories and laughter echoing through the house. His wife, Eleanor, shared his desire, but years passed and their hope dwindled.
I can't wait any longer, Eleanor. Let's consider adoption.
And Eleanor, though hesitant, eventually agreed. They welcomed baby Sandra into their lives with open arms. She was a beautiful child, her laughter like wind chimes, her eyes sparkling with life. 2 years later, Eleanor conceived. They named their son Thomas, and for a time their family felt complete. Richard doted on his children. He poured his love and ambition into them, especially into Thomas, the heir to his burgeoning business empire. Little did he know a storm was brewing, a darkness that would shatter their seemingly idyllic life. As Sandra blossomed into a bright and capable young woman, she excelled in her studies and possessed a quiet strength that drew people to her. Thomas, however, inherited his father's ambition but lacked his discipline. The shadow of his father's success loomed large, fueling a simmering resentment.
I love working here, Father. I want to help the company grow.
As they grew older, Richard brought both Sandra and Thomas into his company. Sandra, with her sharp mind and dedication, quickly rose through the ranks. Thomas, on the other hand, drifted from one department to another, his performance lackluster, his interest waning.
This isn't for me, Dad. I can't do this.
Richard, blinded by his love for his son, made excuses for Thomas's behavior, attributing it to youthful indiscretion. He failed to see the envy festering in Thomas's heart, the envy directed at Sandra for effortlessly achieving what he struggled for. Thomas's resentment towards Sandra morphed into something uglier. He began to lash out, belittling her accomplishments, undermining her work. His descent into addiction only exacerbated his cruelty. He became a phantom, haunting the halls of their family home, his presence marked by slammed doors and bitter accusations.
You're just the adopted one, Sandra. You'll never be a real part of this family.
Richard, finally forced to confront his son's demons, tried desperately to help. He sent Thomas to rehab, offered him positions of responsibility within the company, hoping to ignite a spark of ambition.
Thomas, please, you need to get better. We can do this together.
But Thomas, consumed by his addiction and resentment, rejected his father's every attempt. Sandra, caught in the crossfire, bore the brunt of Thomas's anger. He blamed her for their father's disappointment, for his own failures.
I won't leave, Father. We built this together. I'm staying.
Fear tinged her days, but she refused to be driven away. She would not abandon her father or the company they had built together. Richard, heartbroken and disillusioned, saw the truth. His son was lost, spiraling further into the abyss. And Sandra, his loyal, loving daughter, was in danger. He knew he had to act to protect Sandra from the storm he saw brewing.
In the quiet solitude of his study, he crafted a new will. His lawyer, a trusted friend, listened with growing concern as Richard outlined his wishes. Everything, the company, his wealth, his entire estate would go to Sandra. He knew Eleanor would object. She had always favored Thomas, but this was not about favoritism, it was about protection.
Richard, a shrewd businessman, was not content with simply writing a will. He installed hidden cameras throughout the house, focusing on the living room where the will reading would take place. He also contacted an old friend, a retired detective, and made him privy to his plans. He suspected foul play might be involved if his plans were discovered. His suspicions, however, ran deeper than anyone knew. The news of Richard's sudden death sent shockwaves through the family. Eleanor, consumed by grief, clung to Thomas. Sandra, though heartbroken, maintained her composure, her grief masked by a steely resolve.
The will reading took place a week later. Eleanor, draped in black, sat beside Thomas, whose face was a mask of feigned sorrow. Sandra sat opposite them, her posture straight, her expression unreadable.
The lawyer, his face grave, began to read. As the lawyer announced Sandra as the sole beneficiary, a collective gasp filled the room. Eleanor erupted, her grief replaced by fury.
She accused Sandra of manipulating her father, of poisoning his mind against Thomas.
Thomas, emboldened by his mother's outburst, rose to his feet, his voice laced with venom.
But before Thomas could unleash his rage, the lawyer spoke again. He revealed a second secret document attached to the will. It was a DNA test, conducted at Richard's request. The results were shocking. Sandra, the daughter they had adopted, was in fact Richard's biological child. Thomas was not.
Before the family could comprehend this revelation, the room was filled with the sound of sirens. Two police officers, alerted by the retired detective who had been watching the live feed from the hidden cameras, entered the house. They had been monitoring the situation, waiting for the signal.
The subsequent investigation uncovered a plot even more sinister than Richard could have imagined. Eleanor, it was revealed, had poisoned Richard, driven by her desire to secure her own son's inheritance. Thomas, blinded by his addiction and fueled by his mother's influence, had been complicit in the scheme. In the end, justice prevailed. Eleanor and Thomas were arrested, charged with murder and conspiracy. Sandra, her world shattered and rebuilt in the span of a few hours, inherited everything her father had built. She had lost a father, but gained a legacy, a testament to the man who had loved her, protected her, and in the end ensured that justice was served.